Hello there, welcome back to Antara Park. You joined us in our penultimate episode, and for those of you that have been following along with the playlist, you'll know, flashing up on the screen right now, we've got all of our wonderful builds that we've been doing over the last few weeks. Today we're going to smash out the final 3 animals from the download content pack. That is the Saiga, the Takin and the Wolverine, and we're going to do 3 very distinct natural habitats for them. And if you've been following along so far, you'll know by now it's time to give that like button a little tappy tap. If not, tap it anyway, for engagement. And without further ado, let's jump on in to our Saiga build. Now I'm going to preface today's episode with I have absolutely no idea what the correct pronunciation of Saiga or Takin is, so if I'm wrong, please feel free to berate me in the comments below. Now we're starting off today with a bit of terraforming. We're going to make ourselves a big wetlands habitat for our Saiga. They're going to have a well-planted, very natural looking, very waterlogged area. And we've done that just by building up and down, in this case, a giant lake and putting a couple of platforms in. And we're going to start off as well by building both them and the Takin a matching sort of building. So you'll notice a new little addition down the bottom there. We've popped up an item list so you can follow along. I'm going to start off by just making a platform. Now I want this to follow on the style of the park. We're going for, we don't have much money as we are a country park chic, which essentially just means a couple of concrete blocks and some corrugated metal. In order to make it match with some of our other buildings, we're also going to bring the same colour green that we've used elsewhere. And I will indeed be popping up the colour code. There it is, flashing up on the screen for you, so that you can copy over should you wish. We're going to run that all the way around, and it's a very simple building this. We're not doing anything overly backstagey or anything too elaborate, but it will get the job done and it will provide a good bit of hard shelter to our new Saiga herd. Now whilst none of these habitat buildings are overly specific or overly technical, I do like to try and keep it a little bit more realistic. So we have got some beams for the roof, as well as some of the metal fencing and gates stolen from our Wizen enclosures. Check out the previous video for that if you missed it. And all we're going to do is just bring them in, make them fit the space a little bit more, a little bit of stretching, a little bit of addition, and I think they work really well. And again, it carries a bit of that green over, so the whole country park sort of follows that same colour theme. And I'm still loving these cable anchors. They work really well as hinges. Now that we've got that bit done, we're going to copy it, and that's because the Takin building is going to be slightly different. So we'll put that off to one side and we'll come back to that one later. This one, however, popping on a roof, we're going to use the corrugated plastic roof just to give ourselves a nice basic flat roof. Again, I want it to look somewhat realistic and not too expensive. Now to hide all of my mistakes while building there and just make everything look a little bit more combined, I'm going to run some metal trim around the edges just to cover over all those mistakes. And then we're going to finish it all off with a bit of rain gutter just to run it all the way around, again to distract from that join between the roof and the corrugated metal. Now moving on to something that is going to frequently return throughout the entirety of this episode, and that is many rocks. For those of you who have not seen my tips and tricks video, we are going to use the random rotation option on the far right hand side to basically rotate our rocks around and make ourselves a rock wall. We're then going to nab some of the mossy and tropical rocks from the previous episode where we were building the map, and we're going to build this side of the habitat up as though it was a riverbank wall. You may have noticed at the start there we dropped the terrain down to give ourselves a slightly deeper river area on the side. We're also going to reuse the idea of using the aquatic rock trees and some tropical stone panels, as well as some strangler fig roots, to make a convincing water's edge. For those of you that watched the building the map episodes and wondered how I built that side of the river, yeah, this is kind of how. I mean, I did say I'd get it into a video somehow, and there we go. It's in. You can stop asking. Have at it. Now we're also coming back with the fence from one of the first few episodes, and we're going to use that to run all the way around the visitor-facing edge for our Saiga here. I very much did want to do a walkthrough. They are a walkthrough animal, and I thought, why not? But then I kind of had images of the people getting gored on antelope horns, and yeah, I didn't think a country park would be able to afford the lawsuit that would come from that. Now, we could go for buffalo grass, but no, I thought drin grass. That's what we need. Let's go for something nice and long. And the idea is we want this to look like a flooded grassland. So I want big stalks of grass. Oh, wait, hang on, the buffalo grass is back. Never mind. Okay, come on. You didn't really think I wasn't going to use buffalo grass. It's pretty much everywhere in this park. I can't be blamed for this. It's practically terrain texture at this point. Now, for the rest of the planting, we've not gone overboard. All the reference photos I could get were very, very sparse. There was a lot of grass, there was a lot of low-level plants, but not really any big trees or big bushes. So we've kept it fairly low down. At the same time, I didn't want the rock faces to just look like rock. Now, when it comes to the riverbank, again, reference photos showed really long overhanging vines, reeds, big leaves. I've tried to recreate that by sort of angling down some reeds, and then what you will see very shortly is we bring in some elephant grass just to add a bunch of extra green. This I've never done before, but the result at the end I really like. So in future, we're going to do this a lot more. We're going to have a lot of mixing of reeds and elephant grass together to get that different green colour. Now, linking into what I was saying a minute ago about how I like things to feel a little bit more realistic, you'll notice that we, in the last episode, put down a little river coming from the sloth bear habitat. And I thought, well, that's probably where our water source should come from. So we've got this giant pipe sending it all the way underneath the path and then filling our wetland out. It's a little thing that probably only I will ever notice is there, but I love it. Oh, new fave these as well. These, love these. Siberian pre-shrubs, brilliant. And with that, our Saiga wetland build is finished. So let's pop into a couple of cinematics. I'll shut up for a bit, and then we'll join you for the Takin. So these guys are both extremely weird looking, but I absolutely loved watching them just run around through the water. With that one done, let's jump on to the Takin. So what we're going to do here is essentially we're going to make ourselves a pre-made random rock sculpture is the best way I could say it. I could have done blueprint, but we're going with sculpture. And in essence, what we're going to do is we're going to make one or two of these, and then we're just going to separate them out. And the idea here with the Takin habitat is I want to make a rocky steppe hillside for them to live on. So starting off, we're, as you can see, putting a couple of rocks together, a mixture of tempera and taiga this time. Then we're going to build the ground level up to, on one side, level with it to create a pathway between them. And then we're going to slowly bring it down. And we're going to use that trick I mentioned in a previous video where we start off at sort of 30% and then we get down to 10 or 20%. You just keep dragging and it begins to create something a little bit more natural. Bringing in another one there, and we'll make a couple of custom ones because I don't want them all to be the same. But the idea is the rocks are not the main actor here. The ground actually is that goes between it. And the idea also is that because it's nice and flat on one side, they should be able to get on top of pretty much all of the rocks here. With that, we're going to do a bit of terrain painting. There we go, a little bit of soil, a little bit of rock, and then on with the trees. So we're not going to do much planting in this one either. Realistically, I want some big trees at the back, some dead trees at the front, and then what we're going to create, because bear in mind these are giant fluffy cows, is some tree protectors, which we'll come on to after everybody's favourite plant, the nettles. Okay, this time we're actually going on to tree protectors. So here we go. What we're going to do is we're going to grab some of the saplings. We've got a spruce, an oak and a beech, and we're going to use the conservation gutters to build these little protectors up around the bottom. Once I've got one of each, we're going to duplicate them, we're going to pop them around the habitat, and that's going to handle most of our trees. And then of course the pea shrubs, because look at them, they look great. I don't even know where these came from. It's the first time I've seen them. I love them. They look great against rocks. They're a nice deep green. You've got the light green. Oh, it's brilliant. And yeah, some buffalo grass. I don't have a problem, but I may have a problem. Yeah. Anyway, aside from the best grass in the game, we also throw some dry green grass in there, just to give ourselves some parched vegetation. After all, we are on the side of a mountain here. Now, what I mentioned earlier about adding a slight difference to the building, we've just brought that one that we copied over, popped some eaves on, and then popped on a slate roof. Now, just by doing this, we're making it look distinctly different to the one in the Saiga habitat. And because they are side by side, it just means they don't look too obviously cloned and copied. And it actually turned out working really well. I was really pleased with it. Now, for those not aware, we're going to bury the habitat gate in amongst this door so that the keeper can walk through it. Pop down a couple of enrichment items, maybe a bit of bedding, a couple of water bowls. Incidents happened because I didn't put enough water bowls. I'll let you use your imagination as to what happened there. And with that, let's get some taking into the habitat. Here we go. If Judy could get her head out of the way, thank you. We can watch our wonderful fluffy cows entering our wonderful mountainside. I'll leave you with those, and then we'll jump back for our third and final natural habitat for the Wolverine. And with that vicious side eye, we're going to jump on in to our Wolverine habitat. So for this one, I want to keep it quite small. They're tiny animals, a lot smaller than I thought they were going to be. So you can see this blue template that we made on episode 1 of this entire series. That's still there, so we've just pulled it back out the ground. Now this is big enough for 2 Wolverines. So what we're going to do is we're going to build our way around one side just with the rocks. I want it to be even more mountainous than the Takin habitat. And again, we're just using our random rotation here, building it up the mountain, and then using little spots of the rock terrain paint to sort of blend it all together and get them looking a little bit realistic. Now for their burrow, we could have just used a burrow, but I thought, no, I want to make a visual burrow. So I'm going to make a concrete frame and use that using some concrete walls and a concrete window on one side. And the big open bit facing the path is going to be where we place the windows. So using some one-way glass, we're going to rotate that round, and then we're going to hide the seam in the middle with a European marquee metal beam. These are great. They are probably the best metal beam textures so far in the game, and they work great for fences and for elements like this. Now, to house all of that in, we're going to surround this with rocks, but we're going to do this a little bit more precise. So I'm going to put a rock ceiling on first. That's what you'll see from inside as you look up. And then on top of that, we're going to build up and around the entire concrete box with the taiga and the temperate rocks to make it blend in with that rock wall that we built a second ago. Now with that part done, we're going to drag a couple of the one-way glass pieces out, and we're going to make ourselves a couple of windows into the habitat. We're going to use the marquee beam again to just line the top of the glass there, and yes, the struggle is real when it drops into the ground and you can't see it. And we're just going to fight with it to get it nice and level there. And copy that across a few times, and that'll give us a couple of good looking windows. Okay, with that done, for the very first time in any of the builds that I've done so far, I'm going to use the Steppe terrain tool, I think it's called. And we're going to use that because that's going to give us 3 or 4 distinct levels. And by using the rocks to mark out the edges of those levels, it's going to give us a couple of different heights throughout the habitat. Now we're going to run those all the way around, and then we're going to pop a load of different little rock formations in. Again, I don't want to go too big with this. I don't want them too high. They're only small animals. I want them crawling all over the rocks. While I was at it, I thought, this looks like the right place for a waterfall. And so for the little pond, we're going to pop in just a very simple waterfall that we can surround with a bit of vegetation later on, and just create something to look at over in the corner. Now, one quick check later to ensure that the Wolverines can't escape, and we're going to go on to popping in some plant life. Starting with a couple of trees, the idea being if they fall into the water, they can climb out of this. They don't really swim that much, to be honest. It's a bit like the quokkas. They look like they should, but they don't. Buffalo grass again, because why not? But this time we're going to go with the parched and with the dry, because these two colours combined really do capture the colour scheme that I wanted for the environment. Then around the water source, where there would be more water, the grass would be a lot greener. So we're going to start with the green around the pond, and then as we build out, it's going to get drier and drier to create that sort of gradient effect. Now, when it comes to planting in this habitat, we're not going to go overboard. We're going to go fairly simple. The sage bushes add a nice bit of desaturated green. We've got that deep dark pop of the ferns, and that's pretty much all we're going to use. There's the odd smattering of a couple of aster flowers in the grass, but outside of that, that's pretty much it. Then just to add a little bit of colour in, we're going to pop down some leaf litters just over and covering over all those cracks. And with that, we are finished. Now, as I leave you with some cinematics of the Wolverines, next week we're going to be looking around the whole of the park in a big park tour. Until then, if you enjoyed the episode today, hit the like button, click the subscribe button, and leave me a comment below. I really do appreciate them. And I will see you next time.